I'm a big boss now, Spitzer bellowed, standing on a cafeteria table like he was about to announce the second coming of Steve Jobs. Except, instead of unveiling a product, he pointed at me, at Jessica, and yelled, "You're out." Effective immediately. Coffee cups froze. Middle forks stopped halfway to mouths. All I heard was that buzzing silence right before a car crash. 2. The man just fired me in front of a dozen junior analysts and the entire facilities team while eating a protein bar and calling it cleansing the dead weight. I didn't say a word. I didn't flinch. I just pulled the master campus keys from my bag, the ones I'd carried for 11 years. The same ring I used to unlock boiler rooms, secure server closets, and that one cursed sub-basement where the rats formed a union. I held them up, like a bartender sliding a drink to a problem customer, and said, "Good luck." He smirked like he'd just beaten capitalism, like I was some glorified janitor who'd finally been escorted off the castle grounds. But what Spencer didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that those keys weren't just for doors. They were for systems, legal filings, contracts, security tokens. A few of them didn't even open anything physical anymore. They authenticated infrastructure. They were the locks. Oh, and one more thing. If you're really the kind of person who actually listens to this kind of story, pull it toe, without hitting that subscribe button or giving it a like. Come on now. You'd let Spencer get away with this too, wouldn't you? We better smash that like. Tap subscribe, because trust me, you'll want to know how this mess ends. It only gets juicier from here. It helps the team keep serving these piping hot tailies of office karma, fresh from the legal fryer. Back to our boy, Prince Spencer. Spencer wasn't born. He was minted. You could smell the generational wealth coming off his overpriced cologne. He didn't climb a ladder. He floated in on a parachute monogrammed with his trust fund's initials. When the founder, his dad, stepped away for personal clarity, they named Spencer interim CEO, while the board tried not to puke. He won. Near was already calling the executive assistant Babe. Rearranging org charts like fridge magnets and referring to himself in the third person. Spencer's not a micromanager, he told the DevOps team. Spencer's a macro visionary. Then came the Purge 2. He started the morning by firing the company historian, Jerry Poor Bastard, who cried quietly into his cardigan. Then, he slashed the wellness budget and 2 remote staffers over Zoom. He muted them halfway through their goodbyes and declared, "No more cubicle walls. We're an open battlefield now." But I was the prize. The power move. Spencer needed a scapegoat with a name people knew. He needed to prove the old guard was done. So, he took me out like a rusty file cabinet, loudly, publicly, with maximum spectacle. I didn't cry. I didn't protest. I didn't beg. I walked out past the reception desk, past the stunned interns, past that infernal motivational poster I always hated, "Teamwork makes the dream work," and straight to my car. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in the parking garage, staring at those keys in my palm. They felt heavier than usual, not with metal, but with memory, authority, leverage. Then I opened my glove box and pulled out the blue binder. Facilities, protocols, custodian keys. 11 years ago. The founder trusted me with a level of access that didn't come with a title. It came with liability. I was the named custodian on everything from digital infrastructure to physical lease renewals. But when we had no budget and ran the company out of a converted closet, I was the one who stayed overnight during the ransomware scare. When the fire inspector said the basement server racks were illegal, I was the one who negotiated the fireproof waiver. I had authority, had credentials, had signing power, and now they had a boy king who did UNT, know the difference between an access badge and a root certificate. Let him play CEO. Let him throw tantrums and axe. Good people. Because he'd just fired the one person holding the keys literally and legally to the castle's gates. And I didn't need to break anything. I just had to stop fixing it. My front door stuck like it always did, just a little to the left. The foundation settled weird back in '08. I never fixed it. Kind of liked that it pushed back, the way the world should when something ain't right. I kicked it open with my boot, dropped my bag by the cat's food bowl, and sat at the kitchen table with the grace of a woman who'd just been sucker punched by nepotism wrapped in Armani. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry. Not yet. Just quiet. There's a kind of silence that settles in your bones when the thing you've built, day after day, year after year, gets handed to someone who thinks compliance is a brand of gum. Spencer didn't just fire me. Shit. He amputated the nervous system and didn't notice the twitching. I got up, went to the hall closet, and reached behind the extra blankets. Pulled down the black and blue binder that hadn't teased in daylight since the company's last earthquake drill. Inside was everything Spencer, the shiny new CEO, didn't think to ask about. Every security access override, every vendor lockbox code, every just-in-case procedure the founder and I put in place back when we were still building servers out of Craigslist parts and praying the fire suppression system was hooked to a sprinkler. And on page 1, my name, Jessica Sharp, named Wrecker's Custodian. See, when you're not flashy, when you don't demand corner offices or fancy titles, folks forget what they've signed. But not me. I remember every meeting, every call with legal, every IT fire I put out with duct tape and institutional memory. I was written into the marrow of that company. Quiet, buried, and legally sticky. For 5 years ago, the founder handed me a pen and said, "Potts, we need someone who understands both the wires and the rules. You got the spine. Sign here." That signature put me on every federal compliance record, every infrastructure lease, every multi-factor admin key tied to the backbone of the campus. I was the fallback, the failsafe. The one they decall when a vendor threatened to pull out or a data center started hiccuping at 3 a.m. You don't fire the failsafe. You transition her. Offboard. Her properly, you thank her. Hell, you beg. But Spencer, he wanted a headline, a power move. Now, I had 2 things he didn't: leverage and time. So, I started making calls. Quiet ones. Friendly ones. First was Melinda at Symbold Hosting. She picked up on the second ring. "Jessica, oh God, what happened?" "We just got a real email bounce. Are you okay?" I said, "Hey, just so you know, I'm no longer authorized to approve maintenance level overrides on the Tier 3 servers." She went dead silent. "But your name's still the primary." I cut her off. Not my circus anymore. Then I called Joe at Nestgrid, our security vendor for the badge systems and surveillance. He chuckled when I said I was out. "That explains the dashboard errors, Spencer's. People didn't even know we needed facial token matching reissued. They tried rebooting the lock server. Froze it. Tell them to reach out to someone else. I'm not it." Each call was surgical. No bitterness, no sabotage, just absence. The sudden, deafening silence of 1,000 assumed tasks disappearing. I didn't have to say I was angry. The systems would say it for me. Say, that night, I sat in my kitchen, binder open, sipping boxed wine from a mason jar, watching the company's Slack implode from a burner login I'd forgotten to delete. Anyone know why the vendor portal says pending credential reissue? Jessica used to handle this. Who has her now? Wait, what's a Tier 3 server override? They were unraveling. I wasn't even touching a thing, just letting the machines do what they always did when left unsupervised. Spencer thought he fired a secretary with a keyring. What he actually did was pull the plug on the beating heart of the company and hand the cables to an intern with no idea which one was labeled. Do not touch. I took another sip. Tomorrow I'd make a few more calls, but tonight I let the silence stretch. For the first time in years, I didn't owe that place anything. And somehow, that felt louder than any speech I could have given. The first sign something was truly wrong came at 7:12 a.m. when Spencer tried to swipe into the main building. The badge reader let out a long, disappointed bleep. He swiped again. Same sound. Then again, jamming the card harder like it owed him rent. Nothing. A passing janitor, Carl, who'd worked there since the first Bush administration, just shrugged. Gotta jiggle it sometimes. Or maybe talk to Jessica. Hence a turn to color of skim milk. She doesn't work here anymore. Carl nodded slowly. Ah, well, that explains it. And he walked off, humming. The head of it, Ramesh, a saint of patience, calmly explained over speakerphone to a furious Spencer. We can't provision new badge authorizations until we get the master override credentials transferred. Spencer barked, so do it. Ramesh replied, we can't. The root user was Jessica, dead silence. And that was just the beginning. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more. She was the only one who could issue new admin accounts without triggering security flags. When we emailed her, we just got an auto-reply. My new boss, Spencer, groaned. Can't you just hack around it? He asked. I had to explain that she designed it to resist hacks. It's literally compliant with the Federal Tamper Evasion Protocol. In plain English, we were locked out. By noon, payroll hit a major snag. The money was there, but the routing systems were stuck in a validation loop. The finance team was frantic. Their director, Alanda, practically stormed into Spencer's office, yelling, "We need the second-tier authorization token." Jessica used to run it through her physical key. It's dual verification, and we're missing the second half. Spencer, ever the genius, just said, "Well, get a new one." Alanda shot back. The issuing agency says our authorization expired the moment she left. And guess who was listed as the renewal contact? Meanwhile, over in procurement, a shipment of essential server parts got denied. The vendor system flagged our company, Pillar Bridge, as compliance unresolved. The rep emailed Ty. We noticed the primary compliance signatory is no longer employed and there's no replacement filed. Please update so we can resume deliveries. Spencer replied with just 2 words. No thanks. No punctuation, no salutation. The vendor flagged our account permanently. That afternoon, someone trying to log into the facility management console accidentally triggered a security hold. See, the backup HVAC system kicked in, setting the entire West Wing to 92 degrees. Employees were sweating through their shirts. Finally, someone in HR timidly asked, I don't want to sound dramatic, but did we just fire the one person who knew how this place ran? Yes, they did. And across town, I was sitting at a diner, sipping lukewarm coffee and chuckling into my eggs. My burner login, which they never revoked, was still humming along nicely. I could see the panic unfolding in the company's Slack channels. It was like watching a toddler try to assemble IKEA furniture with a spoon. There was no sabotage, no malice on my part. Just systems returning to their default state when the only person keeping them upright quietly stepped away. They'd removed the keystone without even checking the ceiling. By 5 p.m., Spencer sent a mass email titled, "Change is never easy," trying to spin the chaos as a new direction. But systems don't read emails, and contracts don't believe in spin. Jessica Sharp had been the quiet glue for 11 years. Take her out, and it doesn't collapse immediately. It just peels apart, layer by layer. And this was only the first crack. A few days later, I was in Archer North's office. It smelled like lemon cleaner and aggressive strategy. Glass walls, slick black chairs, and an espresso machine that probably cost more than my first car. I sat across from their coup, a woman named Dana with cheekbones that could slice deli meat. She tapped a folder with my resume. "Pillar Bridge really let you go?" she asked. "Fired me in the cafeteria," I said, stirring my coffee. "Told me I was dead weight." Dana smiled like a wolf in heels. "That's funny," she said. "We've been trying to figure out how Pillar Bridge ran so smoothly for a decade. I think I'm sitting across from the reason." The interview lasted 8 minutes. I walked out with a consulting contract, stock options, and a prime parking space. They didn't just need a warm body, they needed surgical precision. And I had a scalpel made of institutional memory and a whole lot of receipts. Bet. Back at Pillar Bridge, Spencer was still spinning like a lawn chair in a windstorm. Every problem was a legacy system flaw. Every delay was just growing pains. He held a town hall in the break room and declared, "We're entering a lean era. We're streamlining. No more dead weight." Then he fired Jess, the same Ramesh who kept the firewall from collapsing every time a junior dev clicked on a phishing link promising free gym memberships. With Ramesh gone, Spencer handed the entire IT department to his frat buddy, Bryce, the guy who once triggered a building-wide lockdown trying to install Minecraft mods on a company laptop. The next morning, the firewall blocked a routine update, and for 5 hours, no one could access internal email. One VP had to send an emergency memo via fax machine. These weren't just inconveniences. They were cascading failures. A junior analyst found Jessica's name hard-coded into 3 critical spreadsheets tied to tax documents. One formula broke, then the next. Soon, payroll couldn't verify federal tax deposits. Meanwhile, over at my new office at Archer North, I had a window view of the Pillar Bridge building. I could practically see the smoke rising. Dana poked her head in. "Want some popcorn?" she asked. I smiled. "Maybe later." "I'm not done yet." Because as sweet as that job offer was, Spencer hadn't just fired me. Here, disrespected the quiet, messy, unpaid overtime kind of work that holds a company together. He thought what I did was invisible. But the thing about invisible structures is that when they fail, everything falls. I wasn't going to sabotage them. That would be too easy. I was just going to let gravity do what it always does when you knock out the support beams. Let the boy king learn what it feels like to rule over rubble. And trust me, I was just getting started. Thirst tremor hit during the quarterly compliance committee meeting. A boring little Monday ritual Spencer had planned to cancel until legal begged him not to. He showed up late, phone in hand, sipping some $11 juice with chia seeds and oat foam. He slumped in a chair, scrolled through his inbox, and interrupted the general counsel mid-sentence. "Wait, who's Jessica Sharp? She's all over these documents." The GC, Michael, looked up like someone had just farted in church. "You're kidding, right?" Spencer just blinked. "She doesn't even work here anymore." Michael didn't blink back. "She does on paper. She's still listed as the custodial officer of record on our IRS filings, our GSA submissions, and our federal vendor profiles. Her credentials validate 3 separate compliance frameworks tied to financial reporting, infrastructure access, and security audits." Spencer made a face like he'd spilled yogurt on his sneakers. "Well, change it." Michael shook his head. "Sir, that's not how it works. Turns out, you can't just swap names on federal compliance portals, like usernames on Fortnite. It requires transition logs, legal documentation, and an offboarding verification submitted within 30 days of the transfer. Spencer had fired me publicly with zero HR protocol. No documentation, no notification to compliance agencies, not even an exit interview. HR, in its infinite wisdom, tried to backdate the change. They uploaded some paperwork retroactively naming Brissies, but Briss as the new compliance custodian. The system flagged it within minutes. Suspicious submission date, awaiting federal review. By noon, we'd made it onto a list no one wants to be on, provisional verification hold. And just like that, the trap was sprung. See, I didn't set the trap. I just let it sit there, year after year, like the unpulled pin in a grenade buried under 10 feet of bureaucracy. Spencer yanked it out like it was a soda tab. Then came the kill shot. The $200 million deal with Ellworth Tech, a merger we'd been courting for months, hit a wall. Their compliance officer requested updated cybersecurity credentials before transferring assets. A standard due diligence request. It bounced 3 times. Then their legal team ran a credential audit and found that all existing cybersecurity frameworks still pointed to one name: Jessica Sharp. No updates, no backups, no alternate key custodians. They reached out not to my old company, but to me? Aha. I answered honestly. I was terminated without transition or offboarding. I am no longer affiliated with the company and cannot verify the current state of their systems. 2 days later, Ellworth's legal team sent a polite but fatal email. Until compliance custody is clarified and recertified, we will pause all deal proceedings. Spencer saw red. 2. At the next all-hands meeting, he did what insecure men in collapsing glass castles do. He mocked me, said I was the queen of filing cabinets, that I'd built a paper empire, and that modern companies didn't need soft-skilled dinosaurs like me anymore. He said all this in front of the interns, wearing a smirking t-shirt that still had the tags on it. Meanwhile, Liga wasn't laughing. Markle called an emergency session with the board's compliance subcommittee. He laid it all out. By firing the custodial officer without legal offboarding, they had invalidated key compliance structures. The IRS could audit them. Their vendor accounts were frozen. And now, a $200 million deal was slipping through their fingers. The room fell quiet. Spencer, trying to salvage something, said, "It's just a little delay. We'll sort it out." Michael replied, "That delay could cost us our federal certification. And if Ellworth walks, other clients will follow." The walls weren't just cracking now. They were moaning. I wasn't watching from afar anymore. I was consulting, officially, privately. And Ellworth wasn't the only client starting to ask questions. I'd warned them, quietly and professionally. All they had to do was treat the exit like it mattered. Instead, they treated it like ego theater. And now, the curtain was starting to fall. The call came at 7:47 a.m. Too early for a salesperson, too polite for a scammer. This was it, a letter. Go to voicemail while I brewed coffee, then played the message with one hand on the fridge door. "Hi, Miss Sharp. This is Benjamin Kroll from Ellworth Tech Legal Counsel. Conducting a compliance alignment review and would appreciate 5 minutes of your time regarding your previous role at Pillar Bridge." 5 minutes. That's what they always ask for. 5 minutes that pull threads. I called back. We kept it professional. Yes, I'd been terminated without notice. No, I had not been offboarded properly. Yes, I was the last verified custodial officer of record. No, I no longer held access, by choice. And yes, there had been multiple login attempts to credential servers after my departure, without proper reauthentication. I didn't speculate. I didn't accuse. I just read them the facts, the same way you'd read someone their own will after they try to fake their death for insurance money. Benjamin thanked me. That was it. 2. By noon, Pillar Bridge's sales director noticed Elworth Tech had gone quiet. Their emails stopped being breezy and became bureaucratic. Phrases like pending review, internal hold, and continuity gaps started surfacing. At 3:18 p.m., my old boss, Spencer, sent an all-caps message to legal and sales. "Why is Elworth stalling? Fix this." Legal replied with a single attachment, a forwarded email from Benjamin Kroll. The subject line read, "Custodial status inquiries unresolved." And the body. Following consultation with Ms. Sharp and a preliminary audit of Pillar Bridge's access logs, we are pausing contract finalization pending a full compliance review. No drama, no lawsuit, just pause. The deadliest word in corporate America. The board was notified, and for the first time since Spencer's cafeteria circus act of firing me, he didn't speak first. They asked pointed questions. When was Jessica officially authorized replacing her with Bryce? Why is a terminated employee the only person responding to legal inquiries from a major client? Why is this the first we're hearing about unauthorized access attempts? Spencer deflected. Naturally. He blamed old frameworks and rigid infrastructure. He threw in a buzzword salad about streamlined architecture and decentralized trust models at one point. I'm told he actually used the phrase, "Compliance is a state of mind." A board member reportedly replied, "Well, Elworth's state of mind is about to cost us $250 million. Later that week, I received a courier envelope with no return address. Inside was a note on thick ivory stationery. "Jessica, thank you for your clarity and candor. It saved us more than time RH. No logos, no letterhead, just old-school gratitude in a world that runs on back channels and buzzwords." I tucked the note into my binder. Not for revenge, not for ego, but for proof that you can still win clean. That silence, paired with truth, can shake the rafters harder than 1,000 angry tweets. Day. Back at Pillar Bridge, the wolves were circling. Legal was now trip-checking every filing. Compliance was pulling daily audits. Vendors were requesting formal confirmations of Spencer's leadership qualifications. HR was meeting with external counsel, just to be thorough. And Bryce, the guy they replaced me with? Stu, he was quietly updating his LinkedIn status to open to work. The house wasn't on fire yet, but the wiring was sizzling. The smoke alarms, they'd been disabled weeks ago by the same guy who thought root access just meant admin password. They called it an all-hands alignment review. But everyone knew it was a fifth-alarm panic meeting with a side of corporate CPR. The room was packed. Executors, legal, finance, operations, all squinting into lukewarm coffee cups and pretending not to be hungover on dread. Spencer walked in 5 minutes late, as usual, swinging a kombucha bottle and grinning like he'd just beat a parking ticket. Heat. Took the chair at the head of the conference table and said, "All right, what's the fire this time?" With the smirk of someone who's never been within 3 feet of accountability. That's when the founder walked in. He wasn't supposed to be there. Technically, he was on a sabbatical. Rediscovering mindfulness or whatever excuse you use when your company's being gutted by your own bloodline. 2. But one phone call from a board member about a paused $200 million contract, and suddenly he was flying coach with a laptop full of regrets. He didn't say a word, just sat there, arms crossed, waiting. Legal went first. Michael looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days and was halfway into day 4. He began calmly. "We've confirmed that Jessica Sharp was never offboarded from her role as registered custodian." Spencer rolled his eyes. "We've been through this. She's gone." Michael didn't flinch. Gone in body. Not in protocol. Shoes, the named custodian across federal vet vendor and infrastructure filings. When she was terminated without formal offboarding, no transition occurred. 2. which means legally her current operational footprint is unauthorized. Spencer leaned back in his chair. It's just paperwork. Update it. Problem solved. The CFO cleared her throat. It's not just paperwork. She stood and slid a thick folder down the table, every page tabbed and highlighted like a crime scene. Our insurance policy is predicated on validated custodial controls. Our vendor contracts require 30-day notice for personnel changes in compliance-sensitive roles. And now, because none of those steps were taken, we may be in breach of, she tapped the folder, 11 contracts, including Elworth Tech. They've already frozen all negotiations. Spencer's jaw tensed. This is being blown way out of proportion. That's when the founder finally spoke. You're telling me we fired the custodian, didn't replace her, and then continued operating as if everything was covered? Michael nodded. Yes, sir, and attempted to backdate filings, which were flagged by the federal portal. The founder blinked slowly, like a man watching his retirement fund melt into the carpet. Spencer jumped in, defensive now. Okay, yes, mistakes were made, but it's not catastrophic. We have relationships. Clients trust us. We'll bounce back. The CFO snapped. Spencer, a $200 million contract is not a bounce. It's a quarter of our forecast. If Elworth backs out, others will follow. Then we'll spin it, Spencer replied, his voice rising. We'll call it a restructure. Tell investors it's part of the new strategy. We don't need Jessica. We've moved on. Michael folded his hands. It's not about Jessica the person. It's about Jessica the credential. She wasn't symbolic. She was infrastructure. Spencer went silent. For the first time, his mouth couldn't outrun the math. Legal shifted gears. Ned. Just to be clear, sir, if this becomes public, we may face not only reputational damage but regulatory penalties. The founder sat back, rubbed his face, and exhaled through his nose like a bull staring down a matador. Fix it, he said to no one in particular. Immediately. The deal died the next morning anyway. Elworth Tech sent a formal withdrawal. Clean. Surgical. Due to internal realignment, we are discontinuing partnership discussions with Pillar Bridge. The founder read the email 3 times before looking at Spencer. You fired her. You didn't replace her. And now you've cost us everything. Spencer Pell now started muttering excuses, blaming HR, legacy systems, even me. She didn't leave clear instructions. She made it hard to replace her. She probably planned this. That last one earned a sharp look from legal. She didn't do anything, Michael said. She just left. The one who opened the door and never thought to check if the floor was still there. Spencer stopped talking. The Boy King had yanked the crown off someone's head and jammed it onto his own, not realizing it came with thorns. Now, the blood was starting to drip, and everyone could see whose hands were shaking. The scramble had begun, but the damage was already done. The sign went up at 8:01 a.m. Simple black lettering on frosted glass. Sharp Advisory Group. Clean, understated, professional. Just the way I liked it. No confetti, no press release, just keys in the door, coffee in hand, and the warm hum of systems I actually trusted. My office was small, on the 5th floor of a newly renovated building right across from Pillar Bridge HQ. My desk faced the window, which, by no accident, gave me a perfect view of the parking lot where Spencer used to strut like he owned the kingdom. The funding was quietly supplied by 2 former clients who de-left Pillar Bridge with a sour taste and airtight NDAs. They'd reached out, tired of chaos disguised as innovation. They didn't want buzzwords. They wanted execution. And they knew I delivered. So, I built something lean, efficient, trusted. Day 1, already profitable. Day 2, already booked. D3, already being whispered about. 9:26 a.m. I spotted the founder pacing outside Pillar Bridge's side entrance, phone pressed to his ear. Then came Spencer, being half-dragged, half-walked by Lego into the conference wing. Same blue suit, same smug expression, now wilted like a gas station bouquet. I took a long sip of coffee, leaned back in my chair, and smiled. 2. The building across the street looked different now. Less like a fortress, more like a crime scene no one wanted to tape off. My phone buzzed. It was Tina from HR. The founder's back. Spencer's been in a locked room with legal for over an hour. Word is, they're asking about the lease terms. You didn't hear it from me. Then another message popped up. Smarkers. In it says they just realized the campus lease still has your name on it. Someone pulled the original contract. It lists you as the transition authority in case of ownership change. Why didn't you ever tell us? I didn't answer. That lease had been rewritten during a company expansion 3 years ago. Thieves. The founder wanted to move fast and needed someone he trusted, someone with institutional memory, to sign off. So I signed it. There was a clause that in the event of executive absence or leadership disruption, control would fall to the custodial officer until it was formally reassigned. That clause was never updated, not after the founder stepped down, not after his son, Spencer, took over. They just forgot. Spencer never bothered to ask. Now, they were sitting in that glass room with a founder who just learned his own son had gutted the company. Foundation without even reading the lease on the building they were in. I could just imagine the scene. Legal sliding the documents over. The founder scanning the signature. Spencer blinking, sweating, stumbling through half-sentences. That phrase, irrevocable, custodial clause, hanging in the air like a guillotine. I didn't need to be in that room to hear the silence. It was loud enough from across the street. My phone buzzed again. Tina! You really played the long game, didn't you? I typed back, nope, just kept receipts. You'd be surprised how heavy they get after 11 years. She sent a laughing emoji, followed by drinks on me when this all collapses. I turned from the window and opened a folder labeled Upcoming Contracts. 3 new clients, 2 of them poached from Spencer's own future partners list. They didn't want disruption. They wanted reliability. We wanted someone who knew where the real power lived in, the boring stuff. The stuff Spencer never noticed until it bit him. The door to the conference room opened. Spencer stepped out first, alone. No folder, no laptop, no smirk. Just the dazed, lost look of a man who finally figured out he wasn't the protagonist of the story. I didn't wave. I didn't smirk ahead and said my final word yet, and he had no idea what was still coming. The final meeting wasn't on any calendar. No Slack announcements, no corporate emojis. This was the kind of meeting that happens behind closed doors, with phones left outside. The entire board was there. The founder at the head of the table, Spencer nowhere near the center this time. The general counsel, Michael, looked like he was about to deliver a eulogy. He opened with one line. You didn't fire an employee. You dissolved your root access. Then he started the autopsy. Page after page, clause after clause. Every critical system was tied to my credentials. Compliance renewals. Me. Infrastructure leases. Me. Vendor verification tokens. Me. Federal reporting. Me. And the kicker. The security tokens. The very keys Spencer had demanded I hand over in the cafeteria, like they were a set of janitor S-rings. Turns out, those keys were encrypted hardware, biometrically bound, legally registered, and tied to multi-million-dollar systems. They were never meant to change hands with a handshake and a tantrum. You fired her without a proper revocation process, Michael said, slowly turning a page. And when she handed you the physical tokens, without her biometric verification, they auto-disabled half your systems as a failsafe. The founder's voice was barely a whisper. Wait, ... The shutdown was automatic. Michael replied, yes. The system assumed it was a breach. He paused, because in a way, it was. Spencer just stared at a glass of water, unable to speak. The damage wasn't dramatic. It was structural, quiet, invisibly like mold behind drywall. By the time you smell it, the foundation is already gone. Across the street, I was reviewing a contract with a new client. They'd heard whispers and wanted certainty. I kept my morning open for a reason. 2. At 9:42 a.m., I crossed the street, walking past reception like I always used to. The boardroom door was closed, but the tension leaked through the glass. The receptionist looked up, startled. Miss Sharp... I smiled and held up a small metal ring with 2 obsolete keys. Just returning some trash, I said, dropping them onto the counter. She blinked. Should I tell them? I took a step back, glanced toward the boardroom, and gave the faintest smile. Tell them I'm on my way to get my new keys. I turned and walked away. I never looked back. Revenge wasn't the goal. Understanding was. And now, they understood. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this farce might just cause another epic fiasco.